Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Oh, having another cold morning here. It's the 20th of February. It's a Friday. It's almost 9 o'clock in the morning here. So you see the sun hitting me because the device I'm broadcasting through is sitting in front of a large set of windows, and the sun gets right in and makes stripe appearances. Of course, in Israel, they put plastic shutters outside the windows. And today we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about. We might be seeing a prophecy fulfillment about the DOB getting attacked from the north at Canada. We might. I'll get into that story with you. It's a maybe, but it's an interesting maybe. It could develop. It really could. Not so sure it will though, but we need to look at it because it may happen. And then Trump gave the Iranians initially 10 days to make a deal. And then he was asked again, and he said 10 to 15 days. So the Iranians are in the hot seat, and that's going to give Trump the amount of time he needs, I believe, to get the other two aircraft carriers here. At least the one, which is the Gerald Ford carrier and their escorts. The strike group, they call it. And the Bush, we think, is still coming. We haven't gotten any commentary that it's not. All right. And there's a lot of stuff associated with this. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Israel. And, there's loads of stuff. And we'll tie it to Bible prophecy. Okay? And I'm going to go take a look and make sure we got a live stream. So far, it looks good. Take a look and make sure we got a live stream. So far, it looks good. Take a look and make sure we got a live stream. Yeah, it looks good. It looks like we're going. All right. We got sound and picture. I'm going to put a post up, which is probably going to take seconds. It's really not going to be a long job. Let me fix this a little better. And I'm almost done. Let me proof it. It looks good. And let me pin it up. We got it up there, I think. Okay. Yeah, looking good. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise and you guys can join in. We do Old and New Testament here. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so let's get moving here. There's a lot of news, and one of the really significant things that I just picked up yesterday is that Russia just gave the Iranians a helicopter carrier. That's like an aircraft carrier for helicopters. So what the heck? And we also have Russia helping Iran close the Straits of Hormuz. In other words, shutting the Persian Gulf, which I think it's still shut for their military exercises. If it's ever going to open, I don't know. So you got Chinese and Russian warships there, and one of these countries gave them some aircraft. I'll cover that in a moment or two. We got a prayer request, one prayer request today for NF, Normandy Foxtrot. I'll do it. Well, no, I already did it, so I'll give you the prayer request, and you guys could do it. Okay, for NF, pray that the Lord sends. Pray that the Lord opens up the door for a business or helps the business. Okay, the Lord should send business. I'm trying to get the English straight here. Okay, for NF, the Lord would prosper the business for NF or provide a remote job so NF could work from the house or somehow get NF working and bringing in money. Okay? B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and appreciate if you guys that are believers pray for that, especially if it's a video, no problem. That's what we do. We pray for each other. My back got substantially better that you prayed for me yesterday, but still a little bit, nothing bad like it was. So please pray that my back continue to heal, the vertebrae go back in place or whatever needs to happen. Okay, thank you. So Iran was given a deadline yesterday, 10 to 15 days. We're getting commentary that sounds like this. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days. That was Trump talking about what's going to happen with Iran, and then when they asked him again, he said 10 to 15 days maximum. So something is going on that's creating Trump to get antsy about this. Does it sound to me that Trump is going to tell them, 10 to 15 days and then attack them after, 4 or 5 days? No, because then he loses any credibility he had or thinks he had to talk like this to people again. They'll never believe him. So he has to play, straight with that. So if he's saying 10 or 15 days, I don't think that he's going to attack before then. However, if the Iranians do something before the 10 or 15 days, Trump did not hand them a get out of jail free card and say, boy, you can go do whatever you want for the next 10 or 15 days. I'm not going to attack. No, he never said that. So he might attack if they do something like close the Persian Gulf, which they're already doing with Russia. But does Trump have the guts to go in and do that? It remains to be seen. He probably will. probably. So a Russian helicopter carrier docked at the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, where that is, you got me. Ahead of the joint exercise in the Sea of Oman and the Indian Ocean, and it also affects the Straits of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, basically. So this is troubling because that's where the American fleet is, but I don't think Russia and Iran can do much to the American fleet unless they start employing drones and missiles in massive amounts with go-fast boats, and I'm not seeing signs of that. Can Iran take out American aircraft carriers and destroyers? I'd say 99.9%. How would they have to do it? They'd have to send, you're talking 70, 100 drones, and they'd have to send 30, 40 missiles, and then they'd have to send probably 50 or 100 go-fast boats. And would they sink the aircraft carrier strike group? Oh, they'd probably damage it and sink some of the boats, yeah. Would they suffer tragic losses? Well, massive, but would they get the boats damaged and sunk? Yeah, I'm rather certain of it. I can't, it's just a question of numbers. Look, let's just put it simple. They might have up to 3,000 go-fast boats. If they want that carrier bad, what if he sends 140 boats and 200 drones? Just stop there, nothing else, no missiles. Do you think they could handle it? I don't. What if you add in 20 missiles? What if you add in submarines that they have shooting torpedoes? What are the chances of the American fleet surviving? 1%? Now, they don't sink that easily. They might not sink, but if you're going to get secondary explosions, they will. Does it mean the crew won't be able to get off? Well, depends on the boat. I think getting off an aircraft carrier is rather tricky. Just jumping off the top deck would be rather tragic. There would be flotsam in the water, more than likely. They would be hitting people that jumped already and survived, but you're rather high up the water, and they usually don't jump off the top deck. They find another deck when they have recreational swimming. They send Navy divers out in the water first. They might even send a Navy diver or two with a small, a little boat to get over quick to save somebody if they get in trouble swimming. Navy divers are rather good at swimming. I would say they're like Navy SEALs. Navy divers are able to dive with every piece of equipment. I think the senior divers can dive with every piece of equipment that the Navy has for diving, like a SEAL. It takes them a few years till they learn how to use all that. But they're used to being in rough oceans. They're used to, if they're in a rough ocean, there's no aircraft carrier doing recreational swimming with their crew. Okay. If that's going to happen, it's a nice sunny day, and the waves are rather small, like 2-3 feet, and they're pretty careful about it. They never make it mandatory to go swimming. They just let it happen. And I was told by a guy I used to know as a Navy diver that, you got about a 60-foot deck, 60 feet height, I think, with the aircraft carrier. And that's like a 6-story building. That's too much to jump. You're going to get injuries with that. I think if the person knows what they're doing, they're going to go down like this and cross their legs, maybe, or keep their legs together, maybe cross them, and they're going to go down like that feet first, and it might make it better. But I think they try to keep it down to about 30 feet, and that's a world of difference, you know. Uh, oh, you go to a swimming pool and they got different diving boards, and the high diving board could be 20, 30 feet, you know. Uh, I used to go to Pier 39 in San Francisco, and they used to have shows there, and they had these kids they had a tank of water. Maybe, I don't know, it was 10, 12 feet deep, something like that. I don't think it was 30 feet. It could have been 15, 18. I don't know. It was small tank, and the guy would go up on a ladder. It looked like he was probably about 100 feet up, and they would dive into that small tank of water. First problem, it was freezing cold out there because you're on the water, and San Francisco's cold. So, I mean, the guy is in a bathing suit, and then he comes. I mean, it's pretty cold. I don't know why I guess they get used to it. You know, there was a guy in my neighborhood in the Bronx that was in Alaska with the military, and he came home for Christmas, and he would go running in freezing weather below 32, and I believe it was below 32, and he would put a t-shirt on with sweatpants and well, we didn't have running shoes then. You ran in your Converse or Keds, and then he would run. He could have been in Alaska used to, you know, -10, -15, I don't know. And it was probably 20 degrees or 30 degrees outside, you know. So it was warm enough for him to do it. Now, I know the idiots in the high school I went to used to make us go out and run in cold winter days. I hated it. They had us wear a t-shirt and gym pants and sneakers. And it was cold. I don't think they put us out below 32, but they were probably sending us out in 45-degree, 50-degree weather with a t-shirt. That was pretty cold. If I would go running recreational later in life and it was 45, 50 degrees, I'd, have running shoes, I'd have socks, I'd have like Gore-Tex pants or something which would kill the wind, and some kind of sweatshirt and a running jacket that would break the wind, and a wool hat on. I wouldn't go out in just a t-shirt. I really hated that. A lot of kids got medical letters to stay away from that. I should have done that, but I know. I used to like doing the other stuff there. Yeah, they used to make us climb up ropes that were about 30 feet high. And that was, I thought, unsafe. They put mats down there that were that thick. They should have put 3 feet of mat down there. I didn't like it. They used to have us do the horse. See, in my age, these guys teaching gym were from World War II. They were in the military fighting in World War II. And these guys that were teaching gym were more than likely in some sort of special forces or commando unit, like Mackenzie's Raiders or something like that. And they were into PT, physical training. Then they got out of the war and they used their GI Bill and they went to school. But it was easy to go to school in New York. They had City College, which you just, took the subway from your parents' house, and the tuition was nothing. Back then, it was probably maybe $100 a semester. Well, they got money for that, and they got a teaching credential. Uh, they did the physical. They taught gym. They called it gym, and they would also coach teams. So these guys were just a royal pain in the neck. Nobody liked them. They were annoying. They were treating us the way they were treating special forces soldiers and training them in the war. Who wanted to be around these people? Nobody. They were annoying, nasty people. They thought they were living in the military. I worked with people a lot after I got out of graduate school that were in the war, World War II. They were the older managers, vice presidents, presidents, and they weren't this way. The nutbags were the ones teaching gym. If you talk to soldiers that'll deal with you honestly, what you'll hear is they feel they could fight just as well as any special forces guys, but they just don't want to go spend their life sleeping in the woods, in the rain, in the cold, and they don't want that. They don't want to go out and get deployed, you know, 8 months out of 12 or 6 out of 12. The divorce rate with the special forces, the SEALs, the Delta, these guys, is about 100%. I don't even know why they bother getting married. They make good money, so they would be some women that wanted to marry a guy that made a good living would be attracted to him. Uh, they probably make as much or more than pilots, but they're in hazardous situations all the time and harsh conditions. They're in deserts, scalding heat. They're in freezing mountains up high. They're in ice cold water. I mean, a lot of guys are war oriented, but they don't want to spend all their time like that. They don't like sleeping outside. It's not that much fun. So, anyway, we had, as kids, we had these, it was the gym teachers that were the lunatics from World War II. We had a lot of teachers that were in the war, but they weren't, you know, driving us like we're recruits in the army. They were nice people. During the war, they had a lot of women teachers. The men teachers got drafted, except the older ones. The school I went to, my grade school, was weird. It was a very, very academically accomplished school. And the whole school had one male teacher. And he was suffering or recovering from a stroke. And that was the only man teacher they had. So that was weird. The principal was a woman, too. Yeah. Take a picture of the car and the license plate and him. If both cars are drivable? Okay. Yeah. If you call the police, they might give somebody a ticket. I don't know. They have a habit of doing that. All right, you got enough details, then you're good. That's it. Well, what if he doesn't give you call the insurance company and say if he doesn't give you the insurance information, should you call the police? Hello? All right. Ask your insurance guy if he doesn't give you the insurance information, should you call the police or leave? Okay, bye. My wife had a minor fender bender, and it's not a major, it's a little thing, but the guy's telling her he doesn't have insurance and he works for an insurance company. Well, why should we believe him, you know? He says he has insurance, but he doesn't have the paper. So we got his name, his registration, pictures of the car and him, and I don't know what to do. I told her to call the insurance company. You could stay there all day. He's not going to have it. She thinks it's his fault. I don't know how it'll turn out. But welcome to Israel. Okay. So please pray for my wife and us that we don't get stuck on this thing with the car, that our insurance works out. And we don't have a big bill. Nobody got hurt. That's not an issue. So thank you for the prayers. They arrested Prince Andrew over suspected some kind of behavior, and it's due to the Epstein things. Now, he was arrested. Now, that I don't have the details. He probably was not. What I think he was is like when they arrested Trump and they detained him, before he was president. They didn't really detain him. I think they arrested him. In other words, they took him to the station, fingerprints, photos, sign, blah, blah, blah. Here's your court date, see you around the campus, and they let him go. I'm sure that's what they did. Of course, putting him in prison would be a big, big deal for them, security-wise, and they don't even know if he's guilty. They don't know what happened yet, And we don't know if the King Charles actually is behind this or not behind it. We don't know. The big problem we got here, and remember I told you one of the reasons Trump is going to push this war in Iran is Epstein. Okay? He wants that to go away, and a war is going to make it go away. This might revive it. Why? Prince Andrew, I'm the prosecutor in the UK. Prince Andrew, were you ever at Epstein's Island? Well, we got all these pictures of you, Andrew, so come on. Were you there or you were not there? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I was there. What'd you do there? Oh, I don't know. We had a party, you know. Okay, Andrew, listen. You know, if you cooperate, we're going to drop the charges against you. Or we'll charge you with some misdemeanor and you'll pay $1,000 fine, and that's the end of it. Okay? But if you don't, we're going to try to run you up the flagpole and, you know, you will go to jail. So tell us what went on and who was there. So Andrew decides that he doesn't want to go to jail. He might be very mad at the rest of the royal family because they let it get this far, right? So he says, I'm not protecting these these son of a guns. I'm not going to protect them. I'm going to roll over on them. I'm not going to go suffer and all this stuff. I'll tell them what they want to hear. I'll give them the truth. Now, the investigators and the police may not be big fans of the royal family. And they may not be sitting here thinking that, oh, we got to protect the royals. They may not be thinking that. So the police may, you know, take Andrew rolling over on the other people seriously and start playing roundup. They get in the newspapers, they get on TV, they could, you know, when it's over, they might be able to write a book and sell it, or who knows what, you know, who knows what they're thinking. So this thing could blow up. I don't think it's that easy, though. And I'm not so sure that Andrew's going to do it. I'm just telling you, it's a distinct possibility. I've often told you guys that one of the reasons they don't go around arresting a president is because the president's going to talk about what all the other people did, all the evil they did. So this thing might go ballistic, and again, it may not. It may just be a big nothing. Okay, we don't know yet. It's not a big nothing. It may be, it's always something, but not that big. All right, Iran received a squadron of used Russian Su-27 fighter jets. Those are not stealth jets. They are way more competent planes than what Iran had before, which were Cold War era, or slightly after the Cold War, 5 or 10 years. But they also picked up some Chinese jets. Now, I don't know how well their pilots can fly them, and parts and training and munitions and but they probably have that covered. The pilots might have got on a plane and went to Russia and China for a few months and learned how to fly the stuff. I don't know. So they got some aircraft there. So that is another explanation for why they're bringing in a bunch of F-22s. And they sent F-15s home. They're not looking for F-15s and F-16s. They're looking for F-35s and they're looking for F-22s, which are going to be no match for these jets. Now, this is pretty weird. A French destroyer whose mission is to shoot down ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and suicide drones, crossed the Suez Canal to the Red Sea, and from there to the Arabian Sea. So France appears to be helping. Didn't think we would see that, but we are. So they're helping. Now, Great Britain doesn't seem to be helping, and I'll get into that with you in a little bit. But I don't think they're going to be involved in this war. I'll show you why in a few moments. All right. An explosion was heard in the Tehran area. This was yesterday. The city governor claims that it's nothing. The fire department contained the event. Well, I don't believe it was just a kitchen fire, Somebody did some sabotage, I'm pretty sure. They get fires and explosions practically every day in Iran. So they're already under attack. Trump keeps talking, curtail your nuclear program, and then we hear Rubio and the other one, Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and them. They occasionally will talk about they got to end their proxies, they got to cut the ballistic missiles back, they got to be nicer to their people in terms they can't go around shooting them, So Trump sort of renewed his original ultimatum, but now he gave it definitive timeline, 10 to 15 days. Now, again, I think that you can bring the Bush and the Gerald Ford into the theater by the end of that 10 to 15 days. On the George Bush, it's a maybe, but I think it's probably in the Atlantic already. And if it's in the Atlantic already, yeah, you can definitely get it here. It's not that big of a trip. It just has to get close enough to the Middle East to be able to launch its planes. That's all it's got to do. Now, this is an end times thing that I want to read to you, and a lot of people are not aware of the daughter of Babylon being America, but a tremendous amount of people are. Oklahoma, Kansas wildfire consumes an area larger than New York City as new fires spark in Texas. Explosive wildfire growth fueled by 60+ mile-an-hour winds and gusts, low humidity, so it's dry, and drought conditions, so the land is dry, has scorched 155,000 acres of Oklahoma and Kansas, with forecasters warning of continued critical fire weather and new wildfire outbreaks across the southern plains. Now, New York City is a big place. The Bronx is at the top and Brooklyn's at the bottom. And if you drive from the Bronx to Brooklyn, it's maybe an hour and a half. I mean, there's traffic there's no straight through 70-mile-an-hour freeway, but I mean, you're moving on the roads. It's still a long run. So to say it's the size of New York City is a huge place. You got 8 million people living there, plus I don't know how many businesses. In Jeremiah 50:51, we read, the Lord says he will kindle fires in and about her cities, speaking of the daughter of Babylon. Okay, now we've seen fires throughout the winter. I post these up on Telegram. I have someone, well, two people really, that are good enough to send me posts from other sources on social media of these fires, and I put them up on Telegram. So it's very unusual to see all these fires go through the winter. But now we're seeing it pick up, and we're still far from out of winter. You don't really come out of winter in the northern part of America, in the Northeast, until, Easter. It'll snow sometimes in Easter, more far from Easter. So in April, it starts to lift. You get, it starts hitting 60, 63 during the day, 40s at night. You could, if you catch it right, there's no snow anymore, and you start warming up. By late April, beginning of May, it's nice. May is beautiful in the United States, up in the Northeast. I know that. It's a great month. June starts getting hot, but you might not get hot till mid-June. And it cools quick there at the end of the summer. By the time you hit, what is it, Labor Day, when they return back to work, you're probably wearing a light jacket when you return to school. When I grew up there, and I think they still do it, June 30th was the last day of school every year. And it was cool because that took you right into 4th of July weekend. So you got right out of school, and then you had the fireworks. And then people would go away. Some people went away the afternoon of June 30th. It was not unusual to see that. Kids would go to the Borscht Belt, which was the Catskill Mountains, and they would go in bungalow colonies and stay there for 10 weeks. And other kids would go to Rockaway, but it was probably about 90% Catskills, 10% Rockaway. Rockaway was rare. That was down, I think, in the Brooklyn area or something like that, but it wasn't as advantageous as going to the Catskills. The Catskills was elevation. You had, I think, 2,000, 2,500 feet. So you had temperatures that were 10, 15 degrees cooler. So people in the city would be walking around sitting in front of their fans. Not that many people had air conditioning back then. And you'd be up in the Catskills wearing a light jacket at night, and you'd be able to sleep good because you had cool weather. You leave the window open. That was extremely safe up there. We didn't have any serial killers. You didn't have much of anything going on. The police there were relatively untrained, but they would play dirty. So what does that mean? It means if you were staying in one of the prestigious hotels and they pulled you over for a traffic violation or wrote you a ticket, you would go to the security director at a hotel and say, could you do something about this ticket? And he'd say, sure. Give me, $20 or $30 or something like that. And he would take the ticket and go to the police over there and pay it off, and they would cancel the ticket. That was a pretty much standard thing, the way that went on. But I don't think it had much bearing on the smaller hotels. Maybe the smaller hotels, if you went to the owners or the manager, they could get it done also. The police were very interested in protecting the hotels because it was a tremendous source of commerce for the area. And it was a bunch of little police departments that were there. There was no big Catskill Mountain Police Department. There were little towns and little cities around there that this took place in. And they generally didn't bother the people very much. They didn't do speed traps. They didn't sit there behind a billboard and shoot radar guns at people. They weren't. They were very interested in kids starting trouble. They were interested in fights, kids starting fights. There wasn't much going on there in terms of bars and stuff like that. All the hotels had bars, multiple bars usually. So the people would get all they wanted to drink at the bars. They didn't need to go anywhere or do anything other than that, you know. So that was where the Jews went, and it was cool. That's why they went up there. So, you know, I know when I lived in Florida, what they did there was crazy. They would kill school early in May, like May 9th, 15th, something like that. They'd cancel school for the summer. And they went back in mid-August or late August, and it was hot as blazes then. August was really hot in Florida. I don't know why they did it that way. They would have been much better if they adapted the June 30th till around September 10th or 12th. You'd go back when they had the Labor Day. And that's when the kids that would go away for the whole summer, they leave sometimes really after school on the 30th. You went to school on the 30th because they gave you a report card. And then they were all packed and they went home. And then sometimes the last day of school was a short day, if I remember correctly. I don't remember. And they'd go home and the car would be packed and, you know, Dad would be waiting and they'd jump in the car and go up to the Catskills, which was 100 miles basically. So it was an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. And they stayed at bungalow colonies if they were there all summer. Staying in a hotel would be rather expensive, and who wants to spend 10 weeks in a single room? That's not fun, you know, because when it's raining, what are you going to do, you know? So they weren't really so tickled pink about, you know, people would go for a weekend sometimes, a long weekend for the Catskills, or they'd stay. Usually a typical was 2 weeks. Sometimes somebody'd say a week, sometimes 3 weeks. I heard of people staying at the hotel for a month, but that'd be a pretty long run. But the bungalow was, you know, the whole 10 weeks. Actually, what they used to do before June, before school was out, they would go up during June or even late May and they'd start getting their bungalow ready. They'd clean it, they'd check the furniture, you know, and they'd stay up there because the weather was getting good. And go up for a few weekends and then bring they'd bring food up from the city, you know, frozen food like meat and stuff, because you had a refrigerator there. So they had a refrigerator. They had, you know, it was 1 or 2 bedrooms. So you had a bedroom, then you had a living room, and you had a kitchen area and maybe a little entrance area, and then you had a bathroom. And then if you had another bedroom, the other side of it had another bedroom. So you had, I never heard of a 3-bedroom bungalow. They called them bungalows. They weren't set for, you know, winter weather. They were set for warm weather. They had screens on the doors and the windows. You know. It was a nice place. I never did that. My mother always wanted to do the hotel. So we would go up for 2 weeks. So I asked her when I got older, why did you not do the bungalow? Because we had a lot of friends and neighbors that did the bungalow. And she said, there's no vacation for me because the bungalow, I got to clean and cook and all that. So if we go to a hotel, I don't have to do anything. I have a vacation. I said, gee, I didn't think of that. You know, yeah, she was right. You know, so Yeah. Um, it was a tradition. It died, though. It died. Um, there was one. It used to be on YouTube. There was one. It was a bungalow colony. These concentration camp survivors started after the war. I think they probably started it late 40s or early 50s, sometime in the 50s probably. And it was two guys, I think, and they got the land up there, which was probably dirt cheap back in the 50s, and they built these bungalow colonies, but they only rented it to concentration camp survivors. So the whole place was concentration camp survivors. And then they did the video at around the year probably 2006 or 8 or maybe even 10. I don't know, something like that. Maybe it was even 2002. I don't know. And the guy that owned it was getting too old to do the maintenance. And there was a lot of people that were too old to come anymore or they died. So it was the last, they did the special, it was the last season of the hotel. And all the times that I went to the Catskills, I never knew that place existed. They must have kept it very quiet. I never knew it existed, nor did any of my friends ever know it existed. So they probably were afraid of people picking on them. So they stayed there and it went on for decades, and these people would go every summer, and they knew each other, and that's it. All the survivors in New York would go up there. I know we had them living in the neighborhood. I used to see the tattoos on the arm, the numbers tattooed on the arm. We had a lot of them over there. Never would talk about it. Never. You wouldn't hear a word come out of their mouth about it. Never. No. The other thing is the people that came out of Russia and Poland before World War One, they were if you pushed on them, they would talk about life in the old country, but they didn't like it. They didn't like to talk about it. They tended to ignore it. They didn't care about it. They didn't want to get into it. You know. Uh, no. All right. I never heard of a single Jew that came out of Russia or Poland back then that ever went back to visit. They never went back to visit ever. Here comes Donald Trump Casino Resorts. Trump officials plan to build 5,000-person military base in Gaza, according to the files that are showing on a 350-acre compound. That's like, what, Bonanza or something like that. It's a big ranch. 350 acres is, big. So this is supposed to be a multinational force, according to records reviewed by The Guardian, which is a rather respectable British paper. So I think it's I would have no doubt that it's real. And how you're going to have construction of expensive hotels and things like that, unless you got a military there to keep everything safe, right? It's a 25-mile long strip, and maybe at the broadest 2.5 miles or something like that, 3 miles maybe. So 5,000 soldiers is a lot of soldiers for a place like that, right? Okay. Now, our friends from China, they publicly revealed what they call satellite images, in any event, aerial images, of where the U.S. bases are in the Middle East. And they were even showing where what aircraft are, where you got F-16s, F-35, stuff like that. So they're doing to America uh, exactly what America did to Russia to help Ukraine. So they were showing them where all the different planes are and marking it and stuff like that. So um, Iran probably doesn't have the adequate intel to do that on their own. So China stepped in. Um, is this dangerous to the Americans? Yes. It enables them to know where to strike to hit what type of planes. So it's a point of absolute defiance of America. Now, remember, China and Russia are doing right now military exercises with Iran, naval exercises. So they're in defiance of America openly, and they're banking on Trump punking out and not wanting to do anything about it. The British seem to be turning against the Americans again. Let me explain. Um, the UK has blocked the U.S. use of the RAF, that's Royal Air Force, British, um, Fairford and Diego Garcia for Iran strikes, citing international law, leading Trump to withdraw support for Stammer's uh, Chagos Islands handover deal with Mauritius. Senior UK officials privately called the situation bleak. I believe they since went back on the Diego Garcia, and they said that they had a prior some sort of an agreement with America. So the Diego Garcia base looks like it still can be used. So the UK is like United Kingdom, maybe it's United Quran now. I don't know. Okay. A interesting point is the UK did the exact same thing in June 18th, 2025, 4 days before the strikes on Iran came, and then said on June 22nd, the day of the strikes, they had not uh, received any or request from the United States. So they did something like that previously. So they're trying to play nice with radical Muslim warrior terrorists because the country is loaded with people like that. Iran's permanent mission to the United Nations sent a formal letter to the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, I believe is his name, saying that if Iran is subjected to military aggression, it would view all the American bases and facilities and assets of what it calls the hostile force in the region as legitimate targets in its defensive response. So let us break this down. Remember, I told you that I don't think Iran will attack Israel unless Israel attacks Iran. And by attack, I don't mean surveillance or intel. I mean, missiles, drones, bombs, strafing with guns and stuff like that, right? Hello? Is that you? Becca? Oh, nothing. I didn't know who it was. How did that end?
He finally coughed up, sent me a WhatsApp file of his insurance.
Oh, okay.
I've already spoke to Avi of car insurance. He was on the phone with me.
All right, good.
I don't see how he told me, get this. I'm on a 2-lane road, ongoing traffic. And it's Shabbat, and there's cars buzzing in and out of everywhere. Car had just turned right in front of me. I just cleared there by the bread store where people were trying to jump out in front of you because they will. Well, this guy had jumped out in front of me, and when I quit watching that road where they were trying to get out in front of me from my left, he had turned from my left in front of me.
So you had the right of way.
I had the right of way. I'm on the principal road. He had the audacity to tell me that it was my responsibility to get stopped so he could turn around. He was making a turnaround. He wasn't even turning to a business. He pulled in front of me to turn around so he could go the opposite direction.
No, he doesn't have right of way. He'll lose. He won't. The insurance company won't fight. They won't fight for him.
And then he had the audacity to tell me I hit him because I passed a bus. There was no bus in front of me.
Yeah. No, it's right. It's going to all go down to right of way. Okay. All right. So,
No, you can go to the front yard. Come on. Oh my gosh! I'm like, and then I had to fight him. He wasn't going to give me the insurance paper. I made him call the people and give me the insurance.
Yeah. Nasty guy. He didn't want his insurance involved. Okay. So what goes on now is Iran did not tell the UN that we're going to attack other countries that are supporting America. Where other countries supporting America would be, I don't know, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, They didn't say that. What they did say is they would attack bases that America had. Now, America has no military bases in Israel. The closest it has, which is not even military, maybe it is, it's up in the top of the Gaza Strip around Ashdod or Ashkelon. There's an installation right just past the border of Gaza into Israel where they had some Americans up there for a while doing something, but that's pertaining to the resettlement and the peace in Gaza and stuff like that. It's not, they don't have aircraft and missiles and bombs over there, nothing like that. So it doesn't really, it's not a base, and I don't think they're going to hit that. So what I told you in the past was if Israel's not attacking Iran and they start attacking Israel, Israel will voraciously attack Iran. They'll run, hundreds of sorties on Iran. I mean, it'll be hundreds of missions, huge. And Iran knows that. So what does Iran do? Well, what does Iran do? Probably doesn't attack Israel. It didn't tell that to the UN. It said bases. So what's the Iranian logic? Trump has a base in Kuwait, let's say. Just start there, right? So they're going to only attack the base in Kuwait that America has. They're not going to attack the Kuwait oil and the ports and the piers and the refineries and the oil wells and the airports. They're not going to do that, okay? Just the American base. Now, the problem with that is this. Kuwait scratches his head and they say, the base is in my sovereign country, and these jerks come in and violate the sovereignty of my country and drop bombs and drones and missiles or whatever on the American base in my country as if I don't have the right to tell America they could have a base in my country. Iran wants me to get their permission before America could have a base here, which they'll never give. So you see, that's going to be construed as an attack on Kuwait. You understand? They don't say that. They don't, they're not saying, well, if we attack a base in blah, blah, blah country, it's not attacking the country, it's just attacking the base. They're trying to rewrite international law, which they don't have the power to rewrite, okay? But they didn't say we're also going to attack countries that are friendly with America or, with America. No. That, I don't believe they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to. Right now, I'm not so sure they're going to attack Israel. Remember, it's the time of recompenses. So this is a payback on the nations. God's not trying to hammer Israel, okay? He's trying to get the nations. He will. I mean, he's not trying. He's doing it. So it would make perfect sense to me that Israel sits this one out. Now, it could be, I could easily see there's a reversal here, and Trump turns around and says, well, you go ahead and attack him, Netanyahu. But you know what? It's not going that way. The American, Trump is one thing. The Pentagon's another. What do the Pentagon guys do? Well, the guys that are the stuffed shirt generals, like the 3 and 4 stars, some of them actually know how to fight a war. Honestly, they do. A lot of them don't. And the 1 and 2 stars do, but it's really your captains, majors, and your majors and colonels are the guys that really are the ones that are going to manage the war battle by battle, front by front. And they've gone to the war colleges and they read the books, and they study this. They study the art of war. And they're the guys that understand, okay? But I got to tell you, a lot of these guys that work majors and colonels and really know what they're doing become generals, and they still know what they're doing. They get bureaucratic. But when they get down to combat, they know what they're doing. You know, they got a lot of experience, they got a lot of history, they got great intel, they got great equipment, they have no points with God. They're enemies of God. They don't respect God. They don't fear God. They're Satan bots. The military's run by Satan bots like all the other militaries. But anyway, they know what they're doing. And I don't think the reason Trump is staging so much, and we're going to look at some of the previous wars in the region, which the only substantial ones would be Iraq. And Iraq was a reasonably powerful country like Iran, but it was different. Okay, Iran runs around with drones and missiles predominantly, right? Um, Iraq was heavy into tanks and vehicles. It wasn't, you know. So they had like I'm going to take a break and we'll go through that Iraq war. I'll show you. But America had 35 allies, 35, and they still sent 540,000 soldiers over there. America alone.
You know what killed the lady who tried to attack me when we were in court? The lady kept saying, say she was to your left. Just say she was on your left. She's on your left. That's important. That's critical. And that's where he was. He was on my left. He turned in front of me.
It's not here.
You want another piece of bread?
Yeah.
Okay, come get what you want here. You want bread, or you want sweet bread? Well, if you want bread, have one of those for the week. Sweet bread. So
I had to talk to my wife. She got back from that accident. I think she's got this one. It was he was failing to yield the right of way. He never wanted to call the police either. Minor accident, you don't have to call the police, but you can. Iraq was set up for ground warfare. Now, don't think Iran's not, because they are. But Iraq didn't have missiles like this. They had Scud missiles, and he fired them into Jerusalem. So there was an attack. George Bush Sr. attacked Iraq, I think around 91. He got on the TV and he said, "We're going to attack Iraq. I'm not going to tell you when or how, but we are going to." And I think in that attack, there were 6 aircraft carriers. And back then, we still had destroyers. So we had destroyers there shooting 16-inch artillery. They had 9 artillery pieces on a destroyer, 9 16-inch guns. 2,000-pound artillery shell. Tantamount to a 2,000-pound bomb. There's really very little difference. And I'd shoot 9 of them. These things are so powerful, they moved the boat back in the water when they fired. It was set up in 3s. So they'd fire 3, then 3, then 3. They wouldn't push all 9 off at the same time. It would, be too rough on the boat. In addition to that, I think they had 8-inch and 5-inch guns. But the real beauty with this thing was the 16-inch guns. But they're nowhere near as effective as missiles, so that came to an end. I first started cruising around 1999. And my first cruise, which was on Carnival, met some people, and he had just recently retired from the military as a tank driver. And he was in the Iraq War, the one in the early 90s. And the other one hadn't happened yet when I met him. And he was really a nice guy. He was at my dinner table, and I got friendly with him. He was a good guy. And we talked and he about that, and he said that he I was just thinking that was when I had just gotten my LASIK done, where they laser your eyes, and I was really having really nice vision. Now my vision stinks. Anyway, he said that the government told them it's easy, don't worry, it's going to be a pushover. And he said when he got there, it was anything but a pushover. He said the Iranian soldiers, Republican Guards, they called them. That was probably like the IRGC of Iraq was Republican Guards. And he told me they were really tough fighters. They really fought hard. They were really tough. And he had a good tank corps. But they overcome. Why do they overcome? They got better equipment. They got more money. There's a lot of them. America's going to find out that Iran is tough, but they're going to overcome. Okay? It's going to be the same thing. I think Iraq had strength like Iran, but different. Okay? It was tanks, artillery, stuff like that. Where Iran has all that stuff, but their tanks are, 3 generations back, And both of them were a country full of dumbbells running it that just have the oil and have foreigners build their oil wells and refineries and pipelines, and they just suck the profits up. The same thing. And then because they're derelict, lunatic nutbags, they throw everything they can into weaponry, and they become dictators. Saddam was a brutal dictator. He used to go to his dungeons after he'd eat dinner in the evening and hands-on torture people. He was a very, very sick person. But, Ayatollah Shmuckmani is also sick. They're all sick. All the leaders are sick. All right. So, I'm not that worried about them using Diego Garcia. America's going to use Diego Garcia. It's in the best interest of Israel to see Iran bite the dust, okay? So let me make that clear. Because when they bite the dust, the proxy game is over, okay? But if this goes wrong, they're going to pound Israel with missiles. This is funny, but sad. Elon Musk has a artificial intelligence thing called Grok. I use it. I think it's pretty good because the way it works is different than the others, I think. But Grok recently praised Hitler and blamed the Jews. What it said was claimed that Hitler was the best person to combat anti-white hatred. It used coded phrases from Nazi discourse, blamed Jews, and provoked angry reactions around the deal. Now, Elon Musk, I'm sure, got in there and changed it. The problem with AI, when you're asking them to pull up factual information for you, that's one thing, okay? When you're asking them to analyze things like this that are subjective, the AI believes what's written, and they believe the Nazi propaganda. That's the problem you get with it. So by no means do you ever want to use it for Bible interpretation. If you want to use it to find a verse and you know the key words in the King James, you could say King James Version Bible verses that say this, or if you say something like this, it'll maybe bring you a few to pick from. Yeah, that it's good for. Or if you want to know where can I go to buy, um, a chair or a bed or a light bulb or something near my house, it'll do that for you. It's got a lot of good things, but this is certainly not one of them. Just to speak up in favor of Elon Musk, that he's not an anti-Semite that I know of. Musk is now selling his Tesla electric cars in Israel, very recently started doing this with no interest payments. So that means you take 3 years note on the car, you make 36 payments, and you don't pay any interest. So that's a pretty good deal. And why would he do that in a time of war if he didn't feel okay towards Israel? See what I'm saying? He's not anti-Israel that I ever picked up. And the Starlink is available in Israel, but not the whole country, just parts of it, which tells you it's not really working off satellites. Okay. Israel's a small country. If it was working off the satellites, it would work throughout the whole land of Israel. Okay. All right. Now, in the 2003 war in Iraq, that's where they took Saddam Hussein back. Well, they put him in Iraq rather, as a prisoner, and they held a trial and they hung him. They killed him. Now, I want to show you a hidden innuendo of Trump here, and you're going to really like this. You're going to say, oh, Guess what the most famous aircraft carrier was the star of the 2003 attack on Iraq? The Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. Yep. And what's the big aircraft carrier here now? Abraham Lincoln. That's the one that really did the dirty, put the beating on Iraq. It's nuclear powered, of course, and it was also accomplished with the later mission accomplished speech. And it launched strikes from the Arabian Sea. Sound familiar? Where were 4 additional carriers, total 5, bombing by air for about 6 weeks. Then came the ground attack. So how long did it take the Americans with 5 carriers to knock Iraq down enough to go in by land? It took 6 weeks, roughly. How long is it going to take to do this? A good 6 weeks, maybe 10. Because Iraq wasn't dug in as deep. 10 weeks, maybe. 12, 10. I mean, it's going to be a long campaign. What the heck is Ayatollah going to do? Well, I can only answer this way. If I was Ayatollah, would God forbid I never am an idiot like him, but anybody that's like in Ayatollah's shoes would have escape plans. Okay, the best way to get out is the way Hitler got out. He got out on a submarine, went to South America. So the Ayatollah probably has a submarine that can handle his family and other key people to get out that way. How would he get out? Well, the easiest way for him would be to get out in the Persian Gulf, if he could evade or escape detection and go out into probably past the Sea of Oman, towards the Indian Ocean over there, and meet a Russian or Chinese warship and surface, out in the middle of the water somewhere. And they would transport to the warship. He'd probably have a boat, a little skiff, a 25-foot boat or something would come from the Russian warship over to the submarine, and they'd put him in the boat and they'd take him back to the destroyer. Russians know what they're doing with their boats. They've had a good navy for many, many years, but they're not as technically advanced as the United States is for fighting, so their ships go down. But, that's what they would do. Putin's not going to send a flotilla because that would attract too much attention. Putin would send a destroyer or something like that to come pick him up, It could also send a disguised civilian vessel, but there's no protection if the Americans want to board the vessel. They can't stop it. But Trump has a tremendous obstacle with the China and the Russian Navy there, and I don't know. You might see China and Russia fly fighter jets in. I don't know. They could take a chance. Let's say China takes 12 Chinese pilots and 12 Chinese planes and flies them into Iran, and they land in the airport, and Russia does the same thing, right? Now, that's not a large amount of planes, but it's enough to make a show of force and to actually fight and cause difficulty, okay, for the enemy. And does the enemy want to actually go and begin a war with China and Russia at the same time, which includes Iran, which includes Belarus, which includes North Korea, and I don't know who the heck else, but those are the big ones. What is Trump's option? Back off, but I don't think he can do that either. So Trump's going to probably play it that I'm not going to shoot those Russian ships, and they're probably not going to shoot at me, and just let it lay like that. Aircraft the same way. Just ignore them unless they're openly firing on American assets. The British Telegraph, that's a big newspaper, said that U.S. security officials have informed Trump that preparations for an attack on Iran will be complete by Saturday, which is tomorrow. So we got to ask ourselves, Trump saying that Iran has 10 to 15 days, is that cast in stone? Well, I don't know if it's cast in stone. And a lot of it's going to depend on what Iran is up to during this period. Don't know. You want to hear about Trump being nasty to Israel? Here you go. 5 countries will send soldiers to Gaza for this peace thing he cooked up, right? Indonesia, Muslim majority country, largest in the world. Kazakhstan, that's Muslim. Albania, Kosovo, I think they're all Muslim. And Morocco is Muslim. 2 countries that will train the Palestinian police are Jordan and Egypt. All these people are enemies of Israel. And that's who's in there in Gaza. So do you think that we're going to get a fair shake? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. These people are too devious. I don't think so. Canadian federal government decided to flush out their local talent and just announced new express, I guess, entry for immigrant categories of skilled military recruits into the Canadian Armed Forces. So that means that Canada, if you're an experienced military guy from another country, Canada wants you in their military on an express basis. So that could mean that China could send a few thousand soldiers over there that are still working for China, but they say they're not, and they enlist in Canada. And there's a relevant prophecy scripture for this that's rather troubling. Let me get it pulled up for you. Jeremiah 50, verse 3. Here we go. For out of the north there cometh up a nation, that word would be goyim, heathens, against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, they shall depart, both man and beast. So with man and beast, we assume that the dogs and cats go with you? I hope so. I don't know. It sounds good, It leaves the door open. Okay, but let's get serious. But out of the north, what's north of America? Well, France, no. Japan, no. Santa Claus at the North Pole, no. By the way, Santa Claus isn't real. No, Canada. And now they want to recruit foreign military people into their military. So that could be a cover story for China, Russia, North Korea to get people and load them into the Canadian military. Hey, right? Let's read Jeremiah 50, verse 9, and look for a fit. Okay? Yeremahu in English, Jeremiah 50, verse 9. You'd say Hamishim Tesha. All right. For lo, I don't know how you would say verse in Hebrew, man. Never used. Okay. For I will raise and cause to come up against Babel, that'd be the daughter of Babylon, USA, an assembly of great goyim, or large goyim, or heathens, from the north country. Well, the only north country there, kids, is Canada. Can we say this is the north country, like Turkey or Lebanon or something like that? Well, it doesn't sound like them coming over there. I think we got a better fit here with Canada. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Well, they're just going to bring in experienced military guys. Sounds a little bit like a fit, doesn't it? And I know there's a lot of Canadians that follow me, and I know some of them well, and I like them. I mean, I have no axe to grind with Canadians, and none whatsoever, but I like Canadians. I have family living in Canada, but I guess their kids still do. But not my immediate family, though. No. We see it again, I believe, Jeremiah 50, 41 to 42. Behold, the people shall come from the north, and a great nation and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. So you're talking about people coming from the north. In addition, well, and it calls it a great nation, great goyim. So something's going on. It could be China. And then it's talking about, in addition, many kings raised up from the coasts of the earth. Okay. They shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel. They will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array, like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. Well, sure sounds like it to me. Now, there was no Hebrew descriptive words back then for aircraft, missiles, drones, tanks, submarines, armored personnel carriers, robot army, so it's using the vernacular for war, the words for war back then. So what I try to do is take the current events and all of that and line it up with prophecy. And here is something that I just couldn't ignore. Is it 100% going to be this way? Well, it may not. It might be that this effort of the Canadians just falls apart. Probably not, because they're going to probably pay the military in Canada much more than the soldiers would get in other countries. They're probably going to pay them higher wages based on their skill set. So if they had, 5 years in the military, great. But if they had 12 years, then it's even better. They'll get them, that could be 12 years. You could be talking about somebody that's 30 years old. They could still get up and go on a quick, 24-minute, 3-mile run. At 30, you can do just about everything that a 21-year-old is going to do. You're going to have a harder time recovering, that's all, but not that much. And a good in shape 30-year-old will outperform an 18 or a 19-year-old. But if you have everlasting life, you'll outperform many of them way, way, way more. Okay. So I bring that out, and that could be it. But I mean, what kind of moron government sits there and wants to recruit foreign soldiers? I mean, those are sleeper agents in America. And America wants to get rid of them, and Canada wants them. Maybe they'll migrate out of America and go into Canada and join the military in Canada. Okay. Would the Chinese soldiers be that cruel and mean? Maybe. They're they're atheists, so they might be. The Russian soldiers, I don't think so, unless they were Muslims. But some of the Muslim countries, their soldiers would be that mean. The minister named Lena Diab, Diab, who announced it, states this will help defend our sovereignty. also going to be a lot easier for Canada to use their military against their own people if their military is comprised of foreigners. They won't care what happens to the Canadian citizens, where the army made up out of the citizens of Canada would say, these are my friends, families, relatives. I can't see them treated like that. This is also a very serious threat to the security of the United States. And I don't know what Trump's going to be able to do about that. It might also take the heat off of Greenland, because they got Canada cooperating with the foreign powers. That's right on the border. And then I don't know what'll happen with Mexico. Probably nothing much. Mm. I'm really kind of surprised that the UK is taking a posture like that towards America with Iran. Now, you got to remember, Russia has a big axe to grind with the UK, and he might take advantage of it if he thinks Trump's really would throw them under the bus and let Russia have at them. We now have 5.5 million liters of fuel for airplanes. That's aviation fuel. Okay, 5.5 million liters is enough to fly planes for weeks, guys. Don't kid yourself. Oh, yeah. This is something else. And this is really, you got to be concerned about this. One of Russia's most advanced electronic warfare systems, this is a thing on wheels, like some sort of a big truckish looking thing. It's pretty rugged, though. Is the Tirada, designed to disrupt communications satellites in Earth's orbit. Well, it's an electronic warfare device focusing on communications. The system is capable of performing focused electronic jamming on the satellite communication beams, thereby temporarily or permanently disabling it. So it doesn't physically destroy it, it messes it up electronically. So it's not shattered in pieces with smoke. It just doesn't function the way it was designed, which is, but let's assume, why isn't this being used in Ukraine successfully and hindering the attacks on Russia? Well, I don't think it works right. If it did, it would be doing that for Ukraine. So I'm not sure what to make of this. Maybe he never gave Ukraine this to use, or maybe he did and Ukraine sold it or something. I don't know. It's concerning that Russia is loading them up with so many weapons: a helicopter carrier, naval vessels, planes. It's pretty weird. So could this really turn into a worldwide conflict? Oh gosh, yes. See, Trump's going to tell China and Russia, you better go home. And they're going to say, yeah, chump. Yeah, I'll go home. Why don't you go take a long walk on a roof, The Open AI company, artificial intelligence company, like the parent company, has a product called ChatGPT, very popular. It's now taking its most ambitious step towards redefining how we experience the internet. Now, this is a good thing, maybe. It's building a full-blown artificial intelligence native web browser. Like Chrome or Firefox or Safari, right? And this isn't just a side project. It's a strategic move that disrupts the ad-driven empire that Google has built around Chrome and search. Okay, so what they're telling you is Google is a pain in the neck, really. The internet was a nicer place before we had them. Okay, a lot of you don't remember that, but I do. What you get for search results in Google is often a result of people paying for clicks that pop up when your search results come. So the idea is you would look at their pages first, and the company who owns the website you're looking at would be charged for the click, for you clicking on it. Now, these things can be, 5 cents a click, 3 cents, 30 cents. It could even be $15 a click. So Google is not interested in promoting major they don't want to see, let's put it this way, they don't want to see an alternative come about. Now, AI has probably accumulated a database, but they got to be careful. If they use Google, let's say they want to build a database of blue jeans. Where can you buy blue jeans, right? So they send the AI into Google and they go deep 100 pages and they take that database and use it. There's a lot of problems with that. Google will sue them. Perhaps selectively, Google will actively block them so they can't do updates. And it's not good. They got to find a way to scour the internet themselves. So there's ways that can be done. I'll be right back in a minute. You can do that without using Google, for sure.
I just got a text from his insurance company declaring me to be guilty according to his client of causing an accident and threatening me that he'd contact my insurance as quickly as possible. I contacted my insurance first.
Yeah. Well, you could, he has an insurance company, so I wouldn't pay attention to that. Nothing. It's not
I just can't, I don't have the time for this, you understand?
you don't need to because it goes to your.
No, I have to go on your show, I have to go to the insurance office and make a statement.
Oh.
It's already screwing my world up, I have to leave, Alpine.
If Russia and China are just playing games with America and don't intend to do much of anything, that's one thing. Then Iran goes down. If Iran goes down, BRICS and their aspirations of ending the US dollar as the dominant currency in the world prevails. But to get there, Saudi and the UAE are already in BRICS. Okay? And they get Iran, who's in BRICS, and Russia, who's in BRICS, all four of them, to sell oil not on the US dollar. The combined demand, it drops the value of the dollar, okay, and causes real problems in America. Economic, serious. Not like what you're seeing today. You'd be looking at the Great Depression times 3. So, what has Trump done? Well, America before Trump, they started attacking Russia using Ukraine. Well, Russia attacked Ukraine, but they're defending Ukraine. And Ukraine is heavily attacking Russian oil refineries. And they have sanctions on Russia Russia can't sell oil. If people buy the Russian oil, they get sanctions from America. So Trump has managed to pull India away from Russia successfully for oil and perhaps LNG. And he has India buying oil from Venezuela, which Chevron is pulling up out of the ground. And that revenue is going to get Chevron more excited to put hundreds of millions or billions of dollars into Venezuela and raise the output of the oil tremendously. And they'll be nice to India and give India good prices. So Modi's happy. Now he's starting to trade with India, so Modi's happy with this. He doesn't care. He's got a good friendship with Israel, who's going to sell him all kinds of weapons. And America will also sell him all kinds of weapons. And America will buy goods from India. There's probably going to be a better tax deal and with Israel and with India. I wouldn't mind seeing Netanyahu doing tax-free trade with India, so we could sell our stuff, our technology and all that. India agrees not to tax it. And then we allow India to sell stuff into Israel and not tax it. But I think the VAT tax will still apply, and the VAT tax is 18%. I don't think they're going to throw that out the window. Okay. It'd be great if they did. I don't know. They could do it. We have an exemption on the first we don't have an exemption on the first $150. So we have an exemption up to $150. So if we buy an item for $149.90, actually $150, we don't pay any of that 18% tax if it's imported. Now, if you buy an item for $250, do they just charge you the extra $100? No, they charge it on the whole thing. And not only on the whole thing, they charge it on the shipping that you're paying. I just bought an item on Amazon. It was a health product that I needed. I'll just leave it at that. And it was about $50, and they charged $29 for the shipping. And normally would send it UPS, DHL, FedEx. They're sending it by the post office, and then they shipped it for free. So I don't have to pay any post on it. See, Amazon can take away from it could bring a lot of, if they set it up right, it would bring a lot of business in. But what they should do is make it like, America used to have an $800 no tax policy. Israel had 75, they brought it up to 150. Well, they should at least go 350 or 500 or something like that. And then Amazon will do free shipping. So these pirates in Israel that take advantage of you, they're called retailers with price fixing. They would fall apart. They'd have to adjust their game and stop taking such outrageous profits and actually start working intelligently. Amazon has a huge warehouse in Israel. They never use it, though. I mean, it's massive. They've had it 6-8 years. I don't think they trust Netanyahu. If we had another prime minister, they'd probably start filling it with products that would mean now you would start getting 1 or 2 day deliveries. See, there's things that are popular, like garbage liners. In Israel, they have junky garbage liners. They surprisingly work, though. But America got really good garbage can liners, and that's a very popular item people buy from Amazon. And, lots of things like quality toilet paper. It used to be 35 years, 40 years ago in Israel, there were roughly that, I don't know. The toilet paper literally had splinters in it. They weren't real splinters. They were thin little, you could see thin little shreds of wood in them. It was terrible what they sold. The toilet paper that you'd buy here was what was called culls, Culls. In other words, the toilet paper, the producers didn't get it right. It was cheap, junky toilet paper. It was it was terrible. Now you can get decent, but nothing like what you get in America. The quality isn't that good, right? A lot of things like deodorant, soap, shampoo, what is it, shower gel, toothpaste, bar soap, batteries, these commodity items they load them up at Amazon. Running shoes, walking shoes, dress shoes, Levi's, Wrangler, shirts, underwear, basic stuff. They keep it here in Israel, and you would get it in 2 days, typically. UPS will deliver. If you buy something in Tel Aviv, let's say you want to buy a pencil sharpener, and the guy, you order it in Tel Aviv, and he tells UPS to pick it up, and they pick it up that afternoon or that evening. The next day you won't get it, the day after you will. Okay, so that's fast, right? So then Amazon would be really, really popular, and then they would probably put food items in there from the local market. Why? Because they could be as competitive as anyone else in the local market. Okay. So fruit and vegetables, they could perhaps import them or get them locally or a combination thereof, right? And they could do the same with meat, fish and chicken. They might even be able to get it better, do it better than the local guys. But the margins are so broad, so big with the local guys. They're such ganefs, crooks, Yiddish for crook. They're excessive profiteering that Amazon could knock them down. Now, in addition, then Amazon would be able to excel in what let's call boxed foods, like what? A box of cornflakes or Cheerios, protein bars, what other kind of thing? Things like that, things that don't spoil very easily, don't need refrigeration. It's a plethora of those kind of items they can import into their warehouse. Okay. So there's going to be oddball things that are still going to have to come from overseas, but a lot of things could come from within Israel, and they could really clean up. And they could also make deals with small Israel companies if they want to, which they probably won't because they're not Satan bots, and then get more product. So it would be, people in America get Amazon same day. So it would be a really good thing. They have services in Israel. If you want takeout food, they go to the restaurant. They give you on their website the menu for the restaurant. You order what you want through them, they book the order at the restaurant, they pick the stuff up and they deliver it to you and you pay them. So they probably get a delivery fee from you, plus they probably get a 10% discount from the restaurant. So they make a nice piece of change, but they won't do it in my area. There's not enough here. It's a small area. So, I don't know what life would be like if you could do that. I look at Pizza Hut and they put such cool stuff on their pizza. I don't, I mean, I'd love to try it, but I have to go drive all the way into Tiberias and then drive all the way back. And by the time I get home, the pizza's going to be uh, cold. And, we have local pizza here that's excellent, but I'd like to get the stuff with all the different toppings they have there. They put all kinds of things on there now. I mean, stuff I never heard of, kosher stuff, but interesting. So anyway, so are we seeing end times getting fulfilled? We got I will kindle fires in and about your cities happening there. There's this, I don't want to get specific, a subscriber of many years who I know from conversations and emails, a nice person told me that the Lord has shown this person that the beginning of the destruction of the daughter of Babylon has happened. It started, okay? Not that it's finished, but it's in play. And that was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So I believe this person, okay? So a kindle fires in and around your city, about your city, okay? And we're seeing now in the winter these big fires again. Could that be it? Has it been it all along? Yeah, we've been in recompenses since October 2023. So yeah, it could all be that, but it might be accelerating now. But I'm not seeing cities on fire too much. In California, we saw some of it, but I mean, I'm not seeing Chicago on fire, that kind of thing, or Atlanta, or it's not seeing that. We may not. Not right now. We may see it later, but we'll see it. Okay. And then I'm looking about Canada recruiting foreign military in there. I'm scratching my head. What the heck is this? Where'd that come from? Is that normal? I mean, where did that come from? Right? And now I'm seeing Russia and China at this critical point with Iran conducting military exercises with Iran using their navies, giving them aircraft, China and Russia both, fighter jets, electronic jamming, putting a helicopter carrier there. If there's a special forces ground movement to try to do something, your best bet for knocking out those special forces is probably not jets. It's a helicopter. I mean, a jet's going to fly like what, at least 450 miles an hour. So it's going to come by and it's, but a helicopter could hover and mow them down and shoots rocket. They got rocket pods with 20, 30 rockets in it, 2 3/4 inch, or maybe 15 or 18 rockets in it. But they have multiple pods on the thing. And, they aim these things, they got, electronic aiming and they don't do it by sight of eye, they got very sophisticated targeting. And they just start shooting 2 3/4 inch rockets. You don't want to have a 2 3/4 inch rocket blow up near you. You're going to get all kinds of shrapnel and stuff, right? In addition, these helicopters have armor on them. A lot of them are armored, so the guys on the ground, they could look, take their rifles and go. You're not going to take it down with a rifle. A lot of them can tolerate 50 caliber rounds, so you'd have to take it down with something very heavy, more than what usually ground troops aren't going to carry anything more serious than a 50 caliber. That would be the maximum. But if they're not moving with vehicles, a 50 cal is 34 pounds without the ammo. You can't run with that. One guy got to schlep the 34 pound, and the other guy got to schlep another 34 pounds or more of ammo. Come on, you know. So they hire a guy in special forces that's 6'4", benches 450 pounds, and he's going to run with the thing. Okay, it's possible, but it's not a plan because they don't have that many guys that are going to do that. Okay, so that's not a likely possibility. So they're going to run with, maybe some shoulder-fired equipment. I don't know, but it's a problem. It's different, and this could go to World War. Now, this is interesting. They're driving the Arabs, the right wing people in Israel that are in the West Bank are trying to drive them out. Not doing too well, but I don't hear them getting into trouble for their actions either. Now, dozens of right-wing activists, Israelis, crossed into the Gaza Strip by vehicle on Thursday. Today's Friday, so Thursday evening, that was a few hours ago, as part of a campaign to renew Jewish settlements in the territory. Among them was lawmaker Lamor Sunhar Melech of the far-right Otzma Yehudit party. So people are starting to disobey Netanyahu and his policies because he's so not good towards his own country and his own people. Okay. Whenever you have a leader that advocates gun control, he's a rotten leader. Trust me on that. It's always the case. There's no exceptions. It's 100%. Okay. In this world, and when you start talking about in Israel putting gun control on the people, this is a sick person. That's what some people call the sick man. Okay. That's a sick man that does that. And Netanyahu is the one that pumps the gun control in Israel. Very sick. Very sick. Okay. Very sick person. Worrying about himself. That's why they all do it. They don't want a revolution. Saddam Hussein loved gun control. Khomeini loves gun control. Okay. Obama loved gun control, but couldn't get it done. Trump pretty much leaves the gun control alone. But, so the only way we're really going to, I think we're there. And remember, we can't judge when redemption's going to come. I mean, we could get an estimate of the time, but we don't get the day or the hour. So it's looking more and more encouraging. But it's a very dangerous game to get too predictive. But we're definitely in recompenses, and it's moving forward. And maybe Israel will not get attacked, or maybe they will. I don't know. If Iran's getting attacked by America and then they attack Israel, it's not going to make America stop. It's going to enhance the attacks, and Israel's going to pound them themselves. So it's going to make things worse for them. And Iraq and Yemen are going to join in, and they're going to get it. So it's going to be now that Israel's going to get into. Israel will get into Iraq and Yemen. That's for sure. I don't think Hezbollah got the guts, nor the wherewithal. I don't think there's much they can do. Israel has to be very careful there's no ground invasions. So maybe this attack will usher in the two witnesses. We'll see. Let me see if I got any questions in the live stream. The only good government we're going to get is from the two witnesses. We're not going to get a good government from any of the Satan bots in Israel. Satan bot's a Satan bot. COVID lockdowns in Chinese cities. I didn't know that. That's interesting. So they're starting with that crap again. I think it's China doing it. All right, let's see what else we got in here. That's interesting. Thank you. Someone says, "Yep, they are cruel Chinese soldiers to their own people. Remember, the lockdowns in their cities." Oh, well, no, it's not that we're having lockdowns now. I think he's saying, remember when we had them. Okay. Well, I remember they were fighting the Japanese and they were cruel, and the Japanese were cruel to the Chinese. So that goes back quite a while, but still, maybe. The North Koreans probably be the cruelest of them all. That's right. They were bolting people into apartments and stuff. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. It could be it. These wars got to bring on end times, guys. You're not going to get to the end without the wars. India and Russia are not that tight. No. India's walked away from the Russian oil and is buying from Venezuela. And Trump is telling China they can buy from Venezuela too. But that's ridiculous. Why? Because Trump is running Venezuela. And if China buys the oil from Venezuela, they're basically giving Trump control over whether or not they get oil every month. And they're not that stupid.
I just got the surprise of my life. Remitol left town and she's got somebody else telling me I've got to feed her birds until March 2nd.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's not nice.
No. Yeah, North Korea would be the meanest, I think. But the Muslims could become meaner yet. But it does imply a great nation, and that would give us to China, wouldn't it? And China, we saw videos. China was conducting military exercises in cold weather in Canada some years ago. I remember seeing it. We all talked about it. People in Canada told me it went on, and now they could do it again. Now, I need to express this. It comes up from time to time. Is Canada the daughter of Babylon? No. America is it the great voice, the hammer of the whole earth. Canada's not the hammer of the whole earth. They don't do anywhere near the number of bad things that America does. It's no way. Now, if you start getting these evil troops in Canada, where does it leave you? Well, it probably leaves you relatively alone because they're not going to want to start making trouble with the local Canadian people. They're going to keep these guys on the base, and if they get off the base, they're going to be told they have to obey according to a strict code of conduct, you know? I don't think they'll bother you. Do I think you'll be coming to Israel at the same time the Americans, the believers in Canada, the same time as the ones in America? Probably. Probably. All right. So, but you're not America. Now, if Trump brings you in as a state, then you are America. But he doesn't even talk about that anymore. I'm keeping my eye out on Mexico to see what's going to happen there. There could be a massive amount of sleeper agents hanging out in Mexico waiting to come in, but there's so many that already got into America. I don't know why they need to do that. And Iran may very well have sleeper agents they could launch. What Iran's been doing is building up their missile inventory, their drone inventory, and squashing any efforts towards an overthrow of the government, and fortifying their nuclear facilities and probably other facilities they don't want bombed. So another reason that Trump keeps waiting, what'll happen is they'll fortify so much stuff, Trump will be dropping.
I gotta go feed now. Nobody's fed them. Nobody's there. I gotta go feed now.
Trump will be dropping bombs and missiles and drones on facilities that are loaded up with, dump truck full of dirt over them and concrete and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, you drop 20, 30 feet of dirt on a facility, you're going to have to get through that dirt, you know? So they could also put 12 feet of concrete in addition to everything else they have. What do you do then? So Trump waits long enough, they're going to fortify. So why the 10 to 15 days? That's going to probably give him enough time to get the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier group, the strike group, into position. Of course, they might not want them at the Mediterranean off the coast of Israel. They might want them to perhaps go through the Red Sea and come out under Yemen and go up into the Indian Ocean area over there, Arabian Sea area where the Abraham Lincoln is, around there. And if the George Bush aircraft carrier group left a few days ago, it'll have enough time to get into position here in the Middle East someplace. So he could be sitting there thinking, I got to wait for my aircraft carriers, so I'll give them a stay of execution, see what good it does. That's probably what happened. Okay, so these are tense times. There's a chance that Iran does a preemptive strike before the other two aircraft carriers are here. I don't think it's a heavy chance, but it's a chance they try it. Iran acts so stupid, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what'll happen if China starts to fight with Iran. Actually attack America. I don't know. We got to watch all this stuff. We're in uncharted waters. Will China and Russia attack America to defend Iran, or will America attack Chinese and Russian vessels, not attacking them, but just hanging around in the area? Will the Persian Gulf get completely closed, and when and how? And then what happens? And what about oil prices and all this other stuff? It's just overwhelming. Okay. We just got to watch. Oil did get up to 71 the other day. It's probably going to be creeping up. I wouldn't be surprised to see 75. And, then it might actually get to 80. And then when there's an attack, it'll go up really fast. Yeah. All right. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers and their households. I pray we would all have strength, stamina, and endurance from you. We would have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us so we don't get sick, ill, or hurt. And we keep healing what needs to be healed. The healing keeps healing. Your healing power keeps healing. And I pray also for ourselves and our animals and pets to be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray we have no accidents, no tickets, no breakdowns, no getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any cars or vehicles. And we don't get picked on or discriminated against or attacked or robbed or scammed or frauded or ripped off or persecuted by any government or lawyers or businesses or anything like that. I pray if we need work or we find it, and if we need clients and customers for business, we get those. And I pray we have adequate money and then some extra. And I pray that the live streams and the videos do their job and don't return empty and attract the right people into the true gospel. And that can't be shut up. Pray that just keeps flourishing. I pray we understand the Bible better, and I pray to make better videos. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I hope you got something out of this. And I send my Shabbat Shalom. Of course, it's going to be Shabbat tonight. So we go from Shalom to Shabbat Shalom. So I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I am out. Thanks, guys.